Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. We got a few things to talk about, one being a tropical wave that's going to make its way into the Caribbean, where it will have a shot to develop. Will this become our next named storm, our hurricane? We'll speak on all that. We'll go over all the latest data from overnight into this morning. After that, we'll go over a severe weather threat for a pretty large area of the country that could unfold later on this afternoon. Into tonight, we'll give you a state-by-state breakdown of that, so we'll get very detailed. After that, we'll round the video off with a Bible devotion if you want to join us for that. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. It's a lot of that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's make sure this is going to work. Now, if you do hear any yells in the background, screams, just my kids, they are in midday form this morning. I've had to stop the video multiple times because they keep screaming. They're just excited that it's Saturday morning. Who isn't, right? So did just want to give you guys a warning. Those are just my kids if you hear any screams. So let's get going now. So this is our tropical wave we are watching. A lot of energy in this area. This is about to meander its way into the Eastern Caribbean, where it will have a shot to develop. Nothing really serious to note with this right now. Just you see the splashes of color down here, the reds, the blacks and whites embedded in those reds and oranges. This indicates colder cloud tops, which means we have taller storms, which means we just have strong clusters of convection, shower and storm activity. It's your typical tropical wave activity. And this is just very long and just broad, just an area of energy that will have that shot to develop once it sort of moves into this area right here that I just drew the arrow. So nothing else to really note out in the Atlantic. There is a gnarly little spin right here that does have a very small chance to develop, but I'm not going to speak on that at all. So let's continue to move forward here and let's look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Let's see if we do have any kind of updated information. We don't. There's a new update that will drop here in the next probably 10 to as much as 30 minutes, but this is around the 1:32 a.m. update. This wave, which is located right where I just showed you on the satellite, this yellow X, does have that 30% chance to develop once it gets into this area, which is pretty much the entire central to eastern Caribbean that's highlighted here. So this could bump up from a 30 to a 40% chance. Now, if you asked me yesterday morning, do you think that this is going to go from a 30 to a 40% chance sometime over the last 24 hours? I would have said, yeah, probably. I thought that we would wake up this morning to a 40% risk, but I'm going to talk to you about why it hasn't went from that 30 to 40, at least as of right now. Now, by the time I drop this video, it might upgrade from a 30 to a 40% chance of development here, but right now it's at a 30. So this is the area we are watching. Let's go over model guidance. Let's start off with the Euro. We're going to start off all model guidance with Tuesday morning, October the 21st. So you see this kind of just blob of green with splashes of yellow, orange, and red in it. This is just tropical energy, our tropical wave, our energy. So we continue to move into our Wednesday, midday, this coming work week. And then we move into our Thursday. And, we got some energy down here, just chilling. Nothing really organizing or getting together or anything like that. But there is an L showing up, just a lowering of pressure, a very broad area of lowering of pressure here, I might add. And then we start to get into Friday. And not a whole lot changes. And we get about a week from today, next Saturday morning. And not a whole lot changes. I think there's just a lot of energy that's going to get trapped down here in the Caribbean. There's a lot of wind flow going like this up here from west to east. A lot of wind shear up here. And there's just a lot of energy getting kind of trapped and bogged down here. And if anything never really gets really strong, it's not going to gain any latitude. It's just going to kind of hang out down here. So we get all the way into next weekend, like 7 to 10 days from now. And really on the latest Euro, absolutely nothing develops. I mean, there's a lot of energy down here, but nothing really getting going, I would say. So, you continue. I keep getting distracted by what looks like a pretty wild storm system around the end of the month here, but we got to focus on the tropics here, right? But anyways, on the latest Euro, absolutely nothing develops, which is a change from the last few days worth of Euros. So we move forward here and we look at the latest GFS. What is it showing? It continues to show kind of a funky scenario here. And I don't really buy it. And it's just because the GFS tends to just do some weird stuff. All right. So we start to get into Wednesday. It's almost showing two low pressures. In fact, it is. It's not almost. It is. One being our actual energy that comes out the Central Atlantic and moves into the Caribbean. The other kind of just some energy. And sometimes the GFS likes to pop off vortices, areas of energy. It likes to show it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. But it likes to pop off some energy off northern areas of South America. It's done that for as long as I can remember. It normally doesn't actually materialize like this, though. So it's going to show some low pressure down here and some over here, and it actually develops both. I would say more so focus on this, the GFS, as we get into this coming, next Friday morning, October the 24th. Develops a hurricane and impacts areas of the Greater Antilles, and I know it is specifically showing the Dominican Republic and Haiti right here, but I'm just going to say the Greater Antilles in general because I don't want to speak in conclusions here. But the GFS has consistently liked Hispaniola. It really has. So it just spins it around, and we don't want this scenario to play out because this would bring catastrophic flooding to the Dominican Republic and Haiti and stuff like that. So we certainly don't want anything like that to happen. But between day 7 and day 10, the GFS is just wild. It has a hurricane down here, has a tropical system over areas of the Greater Antilles, and just as a funky scenario, right? We get past day 10, another hurricane, the one that develops deep down here in the Caribbean, kind of creeps north. Then what develops in the Eastern Caribbean gets, into the Southwest Atlantic. Just a wild look here. We certainly don't want this to play out because that would mean that Hispaniola gets hit by 2 long-lived tropical systems. But that's not a forecast, so don't freak out if you're tuning in from this area. But, I mean, look as I play this out fast. Just a wild scenario as we're getting to day 10 onward. And, yeah, it's very hard to believe something like that. But it is a pretty wild scenario here. So we look at the Euro AI model. It's now more so in agreement with the Euro and Euro agreement with the Euro AI model. It doesn't really develop much, just a lot of unorganized activity down here, lowering of pressure. And this kind of fits what we're seeing in the upper wind pattern, to be honest with you. So we get into Friday morning, October the 24th, and nothing deep as far as any kind of stronger low pressure really gets going. It's just a big unorganized blob of energy down here. So and continue to move forward here, and we look at the Canadian model, and it develops a tropical system, very weak in nature, sometime mid to late this coming work week, and maybe gets to the tropical storm status. And next named storm is Melissa, but it does bring a very large but weak tropical system close to, say, Belize, just areas of Central America and the Yucatan Peninsula and the Yukon. I'm everywhere this morning. I'm just kind of rolling with it. The Icon, about midway this work week, it does have just a broad area of low pressure right smack in the middle of the Caribbean. But the Euro Ensemble, cracking myself up this morning. Euro Ensemble really follows its operational run and really creeps a lot of kind of weaker low pressures deep down here in the Caribbean. And honestly, it's not a very impressive signal. It's a decent signal deep down here in Central America on the Atlantic side, but you're not seeing anything on what the GFS and its ensemble is showing, which is what I'm about to show you here in a second. But it clusters up all the members between day 7 and day 10, sort of in this area down here. And then kind of spreads everything out a little bit more once you get into the last few days of October. Now, the GFS ensemble, it always follows its operational run. That's not the case with the Euro and the Euro Ensemble, the EPS. They do not always follow one another. But the GFS and the GFS Ensemble, the GEFS, they like to follow each other. Normally, if the GFS shows some kind of wacky run, there's going to be a lot of members that show those wacky run scenarios also. And this is no different. I mean, we obviously got 2 signals showing up on this, one down here and one over here, which is exactly what the GFS operational run shows. And then we want to get about a week from today, it's a pretty loud signal right over areas of the Greater Antilles and areas of the Caribbean, getting even into sections of the Turks Caicos Islands, and everything just gets kind of weird after that. And that's pretty loud. But It's hard to be overly concerned about this because the GFS ensemble always follows the operational run and vice versa. So one thing that really kind of clamps down or solidifies this trend that we got going in another direction, which I'll tell you here in a second, is the Google Ensemble guidance. So the DeepMind Ensemble guidance here. It really has backed off from the look that it had yesterday morning if you were tuning in. Yesterday morning it had it doing like this. It was going like this and then like that. Now it's significantly less members, and they all are kind of clustered up down here, which kind of follows more so the Euro and its ensemble. So to kind of wrap up this update on the Tropics, guys, we've had a trend towards a delayed scenario and just a trend towards just a weaker scenario. So the trend in general has just been for less confidence in tropical activity down here, which reflects exactly what the National Hurricane Center is saying, and how there has not been an increase from that 30% chance of tropical development. There's just been more uncertainty or just question marks that have developed in model guidance. When it looked like we were getting about a day and a half or 2 days worth of solid agreement, things have gotten fuzzy again. And normally when we start to head in one direction at this time frame, that's typically the direction we end up going. I hope that makes sense. So let's give you an update on today's weather. We'll start off by looking at the radar. We got some rain, a lot of southwest flow moving across the country with this dip in the jet and this trough moving in. That's going to give us that severe weather threat for a large area of the country today. A little bit of cooler shower activity up here. And I mean, there's just not a whole lot going on today, at least this morning. That'll change later on this afternoon. As far as watches, warnings, and advisories, we do have some freeze warnings across the central high plains, a little bit of winter weather advisory action here in the northern Cascades. And we do have some, high wind watches up here in Montana. Some wind advisories have been issued for the higher elevations of like Tennessee, and I'm sure they'll get issued for North Carolina also. So, there is some concern for a big high wind event. That's why I said yesterday morning, if you do want to drive up to the mountains, I would go today. And it's going to be packed. I think this weekend's probably the biggest weekend of it. Me and my wife are actually going, I keep thinking it's Friday morning. Me and my wife are actually going next Friday, so the 24th and the 25th. And it's probably going to be past peak in a lot of areas, but we don't care. We're going to enjoy ourselves. But this weekend will be a good weekend to go. Probably still a little bit green in some of the elevations. And someone made a great comment about 1 or 2 days ago saying, Mitch, can you show the and I'm just gonna do it on the fly here. Can you show the fall foliage report? And there is a phenomenal site. It's called Explore Fall. And listen, when I tell you guys this site is absolutely awesome, I'm gonna have to figure out how to use this site a little bit more before here we go. There we go. Figured it out on the fly, guys. So this is the estimate on how the fall colors are right now. Listen, if you're really wanting to know, like for example, if you live outside the mountains, you want to take a trip to the mountains, and you really want to know how the fall foliage is, my first advice would be hop on this site. And this is actual real-time reports. A lot of people probably use old maps and stuff like that off just Climo. But listen, this is spot on. Like for example, right now in the North Carolina mountains, and I'm just showing you North Carolina mountains, for example, in Tennessee, Asheville is right around moderate color. And your probably immediate assumption for mid-October, you think Asheville probably is just in peak form. It probably isn't. Some of the valley areas probably have not reached even high color yet. So some of these, like this color right here is peak color. And this kind of more black brownish color, this is past peak. So leaves are starting to get, fall off and stuff like that. But this is a great way to figure out what the colors are like. So even as you move into next weekend, this is next Saturday, peak is going to be across a lot of these areas also. So this is about a week from today. And this is right now. So let me know if this makes sense for your area. But, I'll have to do some practice on that to be able to kind of flow through that a little bit better. I'm kind of just going with the flow this morning. I hope you guys are okay with that. If you're a first time viewer like this dude is everywhere. Well, this is a little bit of an outlier video. But anyways, today's severe weather threat, there is a slight risk across the areas in yellow that you see. That's a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Entire state of Arkansas, western areas of Tennessee, a good chunk of Mississippi, areas of Alabama, northern Louisiana, northeast Texas, and eastern Oklahoma. Level 2 out of 5. A risk includes all the cities you see. And then we got a marginal risk in the dark green area. What's driving this? Come on. No. All right, here we go. What's driving this? Here's the tornado threat. The brown area, that is a 5% risk of a tornado. We'll see if we get an upgrade with this later today. But there's a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in the brown area. And then we look at the wind threats. If you live in the yellow area, that's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. And then if you look at the hail threat, in the yellow area, there is a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. It's definitely a smaller area of the severe weather threat area. Now, I'm not going to ignore you guys to the north. Please don't think I am. I wouldn't leave you hanging. There is a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather that does extend all the way just south of St. Louis. It does include Evansville, Indiana, also, for example, in southern areas of Illinois, western Kentucky. Marginal risk does extend all the way up into a very small section of lower Michigan. Basically, the entire western half of Ohio for later tonight, good chunk of Indiana, and all the way into central Kentucky and middle Tennessee. All right, so same thing. I'll take another look at this. This is the tornado threat. There is a 2% risk all the way up into lower sections, southern sections of lower Michigan. This is the wind threat. The yellow area, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then this is the hail threat. So just want to show you a closer look at all that. Now, we do need to watch out for flash flooding. I wouldn't be surprised if they move this 15% risk all the way up here. But we'll see. But right now, the biggest risk of flash flooding for today extends from just north of Fayetteville, Arkansas, through Springfield, Missouri, through areas of the Buda, Missouri, and all the way to just south of St. Louis. So let's go on and give you a breakdown. We'll give you a state-by-state when we work to that area of the country. This is the southeast today. Quiet in the immediate southeast. It's just later on tonight. Areas of the deep south, Mississippi, into Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, which I'm about to show you a closer up look. This is later this evening. A round of storms will blast through. Dry, cool air immediately follows behind it. Pretty tight gradient cold front behind all this action. So let's go on and take a closer look at all this. And we haven't done this in quite some time, but this is a closer look at what the HRRR model thinks is going to happen later on this evening. And this is 6 p.m. Central Time. So if you're like, Mitch, man, what's the time frame of this? Look right up here, and it shows many towns and cities on this map. It's not going to show every one. But this is 8 p.m., this is 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Good chunk of Mississippi experiencing strong to severe thunderstorms. Look at Jackson around 10 p.m. It's going to be a loud night. This could disturb some sports events and just events in general. This time of the year, there's a lot of outdoor activities, fall festivals and stuff like that. But this is 1 a.m. tonight. Big line of storms making its way through areas of Mississippi, Meridian, Hattiesburg, getting it, starts moving to Tuscaloosa, gets into Birmingham, Florence, Huntsville. And then we have to see how much this sort of holds together in the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning. Monroeville down to Mobile, Mamaw, Pawpaw. I know y'all, they live down here if you're wondering. Definitely be aware of some storms in the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning. Definitely a loud start right before the sun comes up. And then we can have a line of storms that will probably be weakening upon approach, like in Atlanta, Columbus, LaGrange, Dothan, things like that. So a little bit up the road to the north. This is 5 p.m. This is Kentucky, and Tennessee even shows areas of to the north also. But this is 7 p.m., 8 p.m. It'll be a quiet afternoon. You might wonder in western Tennessee, western Kentucky, you get about dinner time, you're like, man, nothing's happening. It's really after dinner time. Some storms will move through, but this particular model run doesn't show it being that bad. It shows kind of a weaker scenario, kind of a weakening scenario, but we get into 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Some strong gusty winds will be associated with whatever falls regardless, but it does show more of a weakening scenario kind of, or area of convection shower and storm activity kind of making its way through. But the northeast, quiet day, some clouds, a little bit of shower activity, but for the most part, today will be quiet. Tomorrow might change a little bit, but not a whole lot to speak on with the northeast. South central U.S., here's all the energy ejecting across areas of the south central U.S. into the Mississippi Valley, and you can see a lot of thunderstorm activity with it. And that's just a broad look at everything right there. Of course, let's take a closer look. Let's look at northeast Texas. Some thunderstorms could pop up right on top of the Dallas-Fort Worth area around midday, early afternoon. Could be a bit of a hell threat with these. A little bit more of some discrete action down here near Cleburne and Waco and stuff like that. And you see these circle things coming off some of these cells. This indicates stronger updrafts, rotating, could produce some hail, maybe a quick spin up. But this is 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., some thunderstorms affecting you guys in eastern Texas, getting into Louisiana. So be aware of all this. Oklahoma, stuff will get going about mid to late morning, and then it's going to be a loud midday to early afternoon if you live in eastern Oklahoma. Look at all these storms. Bartlesville, Tulsa, down to McAllister. It's going to be a loud early afternoon, so go on and prepare accordingly for that. But I really think by the time we get into this evening, things will be fine. Some dry, cooler air moves in behind the cold front. It's just really kind of morning to early afternoon. Louisiana, this will be more so an afternoon thing, and big thunderstorms popping up right on top of Alexandria around 5 p.m. And we get into this evening, and kind of a cluster of stronger activity could begin to move through the northern parishes of Louisiana, Shreveport, Monroe. And these storms look pretty intense, guys. 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11, 12, and then we get into the overnight hours. And whatever's left of this energy will continue to move through southeast Louisiana. And then Arkansas is a big state for severe weather today. Seems like it's always a big state for weather in general. 3 p.m., 4 p.m., look at all these storms cruising across the state. Obviously, the western half of the state will get hit first. And then the middle portion of the state, middle afternoon, late afternoon, and then I would say the eastern half of the state, more so the evening, dinner time, storms will rumble on through, damaging wind threat, tornado risk with this, and there will be a hail threat, especially for the western areas of the state more so. Up into the north central U.S., we'll have some morning stuff that'll move through lower Michigan this morning, and then we get into this afternoon, big area of shower and storm activity will move through the Midwest and eventually get all the way up into the upper Midwest, and embedded low pressure with this. This is a big area of heavy rain. So I'm surprised there's not a higher risk of flooding a little bit further up the road into these areas, but this is waking up tomorrow morning and just a soggy start for sure. So anyways, moving past this and giving you a state-by-state breakdown, Missouri, big area of just convection will get going, especially for the southern half of the state. This is where this could be severe, but this is a lot of heavy rain. This is a lot of embedded thunderstorm activity. Just be careful and mindful of flooding through this area. This is 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. So a lot of action skirting through the state. Illinois, and Indiana. This is getting to midday. Some thunderstorms in the southern half of Illinois. Some heavy downpours can make its way into central Indiana. And then here comes the big cluster of action here. Going to hunker down for the afternoon if you live in Illinois and getting into areas of Indiana, as there will be a lot of action. A lot of heavy rain in St. Louis. Springfield, Peoria, some action could get up to your area, but there could be a sharp cutoff. And this is 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Heavy rain, 10, 11, getting into the overnight hours. Eventually, some of this action could get into Ohio, but I wouldn't worry too much. Looks like Ohio, at least over the next 24 or so hours, most of the energy will pass over in a more favorable time for a weaker scenario of the time frame. So rainfall between now and about 7 p.m. Monday. You can see that area of 2-3 inches of rain all the way up into lower Michigan. So a lot of rain could fall in this region. Western U.S. Energy will dive down, which is embedded into that trough across the northern plains. We're getting a big washout up here in the Pacific Northwest. But that really isn't anything unusual for really any time of the year, especially this time of the year. But temperatures, big warm up ahead of this cold front all the way into southern Ontario. So southeast will be a warmer day, but as far as the humidity, not too bad. The further you get, the closer you get to the Mississippi River, the more humid it will be. And this is temperatures out west. Definitely a plume of cooler air, but nothing unusually cold by any means, okay? So nothing too crazy to worry about. Now let's create a timestamp and let's do our Bible devotion. And hey, look, there's our latest update. Did not upgrade to that 40% chance, so didn't think it would. So let's do our Bible devotion this morning, and then we'll wrap it up and have a great Saturday. So this morning we're in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1 through 2. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1 through 2, if you want to stop the video and turn to it. Therefore, be imitators of God as dearly loved children, and walk in love as Christ also loved us and gave himself for us, a sacrificial and fragrant offering to God. So it says, therefore, be imitators of God as dearly loved children, and walk in love as Christ also loved us and gave himself for us, a sacrificial and fragrant offering to God. So I just want to repeat that a little bit. Well, there's a little bit more flow there. But I wrote a couple things. I said, just as children imitate their, just as children imitate their parents, we should imitate the character of God. That doesn't matter. We all know we're going to fall short of that, right? But if it kind of leads me to this, we will fall short, but we should never grow tired of doing it. You know, that's huge, because sometimes we get discouraged. It's like, man, I just keep failing at this. You gotta keep going at it. You gotta keep going at it. Jesus is the perfect example. I'm sorry, I want to say this after that. Love one another through it all. Let love drive your motives. This might not be easy all the time. It's not. Jesus is the perfect example of completely going all out with love, with the ultimate sacrifice he made by dying on the cross to save us from our sins. When you do this, you become a light in the world, walking and living a life that reflects the characteristics of Christ, will glorify God. I'll say that again. When you do this, you become a light in the world, walking and living a life that reflects the characteristics of Christ, will glorify God. And I know we recycle the same things in these devotions, but I know it helps me. And I hope it helps you guys, but I can't say this enough, and I have to remind myself of this every single day when I want to get annoyed with something or just react in a way I shouldn't. But, it mentions love in there, right? Love has to be our main motive in what we do, how we handle things, how we handle adversity with anything. Adversity is a broad term, right? So, always think of it like this, and I've said this before, say you're working with somebody or you're around somebody a lot, whether it's a family member or a coworker, and they know you as a follower of Christ. They know that you're a Christian, and that person, might be on the fence or something like that, or just flat out don't believe in God. But they respect you and they kind of watch you, and y'all, still talk with one another at work, and it's a friendly environment. I'm just kind of providing an example, right? Who knows how close that person is to maybe being interested in, who knows, going to church, talking to God, praying, whatever it may be. And you might be being used by God as that person's main sort of example of what being a Christian is all about, what being a follower of Christ is all about. And it's a little bit of pressure, but it's that Christ-like pressure, right? It's good pressure. It's pressure that we need. But how are you? Are you being a light? If you're not, then you're setting a bad example, and that person might be turned off. So when I say that last part, I say glorifying God. Just living a life of love and living a life of following, of striving to live by the characteristics of Christ is going to glorify God, because that person might be watching you, and you setting that great example might motivate them to make the changes. If you're not setting a great example, then it's going to be a turnoff. I mean, the reality of it is I can't tell you. I can't tell you how many times people get turned off from church, things like that, because they go and they have a really bad experience, or they have had a really bad experience and just in their past, and they use that as every reason, call it an excuse in the world to not be, just not seek Christ and not be a follower or not believe. So whether that's right or wrong, don't don't let yourself be that reason for that person. Hope that makes sense. But anyways, and I put pressure on myself every day. Like someone's watching me and using me as an example of who I say I am, right? Because I'm a type of person that, you can tell me you're this, that, and the other. You can tell you're the greatest at this that this world has ever seen. You can tell me that you're that, you're this, whatever, and I'll say, okay, cool, and then I'm gonna sit back and watch you. That's not gonna be my priority, but I'm just kind of I'm gonna kind of watch you, right? And so, anyways, that's all I got. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day. God bless all y'all. We'll talk again tomorrow morning.